What's up, you knuckleheads? It's Josh here, and we are down to the last position in our World's 2022 player ratings and rankings. It's the mid laners' time to shine. Let's get into it. For reference, if you need to know how I rate and rank all of these players, I did an explanation in my very first rating for the ADCs. You can check that out right here. And I've done these for every single position for every team and every player starting at Worlds. And now we're down to the mid laners, so let's go. And starting off in the bottom tier, we have, no surprise, representatives from the smaller minor regions. We have Chiefs Esports Cali, Saya of LLA's Isurus Gaming, but then we also have two mid laners from mid-tier regions. We have Beyond Gaming's Minji and Saigon Buffalo Froggy. There isn't a lot to say about the players in this tier. They're all on pretty bad teams. I will say that Froggy is surprisingly one of the worst laning mid laners who is attending Worlds, and for a team that I really like in Saigon Buffalo, I think unfortunately Froggy is going to end up being that kind of weak link that could hold them back from making a significant run in this tournament. Ditto for Minji, even though I'm not as high on Beyond Gaming. And I will say between Saya and Tally, Saya is the more consistent player. Tally actually has a lot of very good skills, but his laning in the LCO has not been very impressive, and that is really going to drag him down. It makes me wonder how bad he's going to get bodied by some of even the decent mid laners at this tournament. And speaking of those decent mid laners, we're not quite there yet, but we can get to some of the at least passable minor region mid laners in Istanbul Wildcats Saya, CBLOL representative Tinones of Loud, the other PCS mid laner CTPC Flying Oysters Mission, and finally Detonation Focus Me's Yaharong. Saren is a very experienced mid laner. He's been to a lot of international tournaments. He is kind of what he is. He can have like one or two pop-off moments, but I don't think he's incredibly special. Tinones is actually a player that I haven't heard about in a long time. He was on that famous Kaboom team that took down Alliance way back when and allowed Cloud9 to get out of group stage. So nice to see an ally of America making his appearance at Worlds again. Mission is also an international tournament veteran. Again, he kind of is what he is. I wouldn't say he's better than Saren, but he's performed at least slightly better in a harder region than Zaren did, so he gets a bump in his rating. And then finally, Yaharong of Detonation Focus Me. He's actually replacing Arya, who was one of my sleeper picks last year, who's gone on to be a pretty good mid laner for KT Rolster. So I think Yaharong has performed decently well in his absence and could be another surprise sleeper pick for the mid laners, but I don't think he's proven just quite enough to justify the same sort of hype level that I had for Arya. Up in the next tier, unfortunately, we have all three LCS mid laners in a row: 100 Thieves Abadaga, Cloud9's Jensen, and Jojo Pyun of Evil Geniuses. Gives me no pleasure to unfortunately say that we're not sending our best NA mid laners, which would be Takui and Bjergsen. Not to say that Abadaga, Jensen, and Jojo are bad mid laners, but I just really don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to stack up to any of the Eastern mid laners. We also have GAM Esports Kati in this tier, who is having a pretty good year as a relatively unknown mid laner out of the PCS. And then finally, we have our lowest rated LEC mid laner, which is Mad Lions Niski. This is a little bit controversial. I don't really have that high opinion of Niski. He's certainly a very good mid laner, but for me, I want a mid laner who can stand up and make plays on their own. Niski is kind of more of an enabling mid laner. He can play around the team, and that's very good. But if you need somebody to step up and be the carry, you kind of need that out of a mid laner, in my opinion. Niski's just not that guy. He's not going to pop off and take over games. One guy who definitely can pop off and carry, though, is G2's Caps, who makes it into our next tier. He's definitely a solid player. One thing I will say is that he is a little bit lacking in terms of laning. Not that he's a bad laner or anything, he just hasn't been that impressive compared to years past where he's just been dominant in lane. He's joined in this tier by his fellow LEC mid laner Humanoid, who I think has had a very quiet, good year for Fnatic. He's been a much better team fighter than I think I've given him credit for, because I always associate him with being on those like Twisted Fate and LeBlanc split 1-3-1 kind of champions, and he's still done that this year, but he's also proven to be very adept at the champions like Orianna, Victor, Silas, kind of making him a little bit less of a one-trick pony, so to speak. They're joined in this tier by three Korean mid laners, the first being ShowMaker of DWG Kia. this is really shocking to me because I've always considered ShowMaker to be maybe one of the best mid laners in the world, and this year he's just kind of had a very meh year. He just hasn't performed to the standard that I would expect for him, and it's really disappointing to see him rated this low with such low damage, gold counts, and just production in general. DRX's Zika is another player in this tier. He's a very, very good team fighter, gets out a lot of damage, doesn't die a lot, does exactly what you want out of a mid laner. His laning is a little bit suspect, but that's just compared to other LCK mid laners. That's not to say that he can't possibly stand up to the best LPL and LCK mid laners. And then finally, in this tier, we have the unkillable demon god himself. It's Faker. The guy is, at this point, mythical status, but if we're looking at the production and the numbers, he hasn't really been the same Faker that we think of back in 2014, 2015, 2016 in quite a while. He's still very, very good. He's still a very effective player, but he's not in that elite tier quite. But in that elite tier, we have 3 players, 2 from the LPL, which would be Xioahu of JD Gaming and EDG's Scout. These are both players who are absolutely exceptional, but I really just think they're a step behind the top 3. And then also in this tier, we have the LEC's final representative, Rogue Larson. And this is going to be controversial, but I've always thought that Larson was criminally underrated. I think he has been the best mid in the LEC for the past year or 2. I know it seems like blasphemy to compare him to like Caps, but when you put their productions up against each other, it's really no contest. Larson is just an absolute god in terms of KDA, DPM, laning stats. He just outclasses not just Caps, but everybody in the LEC. He is an elite tier mid laner, and I think he's going to continue to show that in Worlds. But they are all still a step below the top 3 who are actually just in a tier of their own. I don't think any of the other 3 elite players are really that close to being in the top 3, and we start in the number 3 position with Top Esports Knight. It continues to flabbergast me just how productive Knight is every single year and how little recognition he gets. The guy has an absolutely insane champ pool that is so deep. He can play just about everything to a high level. His Ahri is absolutely disgusting, and I don't care how good or bad it is in the meta, it's probably going to be worth a ban, as is his Rise, a champion that has not been meta all year, but that Knight has nonetheless dominated with for the entire year. Second on the list is RNG mid laner Xioahu, and it continues to be one of the most impressive things that I've seen in professional League of Legends, that Xioahu managed to leave his main role mid, go to top, become an elite level top laner for a year with RNG, then go back to mid lane and return to form as one of the best mid laners in the world. Again, the stats are not quite as good as maybe even Knight, but the champion pool is just so deep. It is literally an ocean. The guy can play anything in the mid lane, and he can just make enemy laners look silly by how good he is in the early game, roaming and getting leads. But all of them fall short of the number 1 mid laner and the number 1 player at Worlds. You guessed it, it's gen.g's Chovy. I mean, there's nothing I can really say that's new about Chovy. The guy plays like a god. This year, he has cranked it up to 12 somehow. There's no aspect of the game where he is not absolutely dominant. Team fighting, check. Defensively, getting out damage and managing not to die, check. Laning, check. Champion pool, absolutely. There is just nobody in League of Legends who is playing at as high a level as Chovy, and that is why he is the only player to earn a 99 rating going into Worlds. So the guy absolutely deserves it. He is just broken at a level that nobody else has managed to reach, honestly, in a long time, and I can't wait to watch Chovy play against some of the best in the world, and I hope that he shows that same form that he has all year. But there you have it. Those are the player ratings for the mid lane and every single lane. Guys, let me know what you think. I'm going to be posting some content throughout Worlds, so be sure to follow that here. I'm going to also link my new Twitter account where I'm going to be posting like memes and light level analysis throughout Worlds. Hop on there if you want to chat, and hopefully this Worlds is a good one. I'll catch you later, knuckleheads. Peace!